And welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. My name is Andrew Murata, host of the show. It is show number 93, and welcome to the program. Thanks so much for tuning in, and appreciate you being here with us today. If you are watching live, please leave us a question or comment. Today, we're going to meet our guest here coming up in a moment. Jeff Evner is our guest today. He's the Assistant Superintendent at the Auburn City School District in upstate New York. And we're going to be meeting Jeff in a moment. So if you are watching live on Facebook, please leave us a question or a comment. And if you're watching it on replay, we'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much for tuning in. I welcome in our audience on Disrupt Ed TV, Voice Ed Radio Canada, and certainly if you're listening afterwards on iTunes, thank you very much. Leave us a comment. People are telling me they like the show. They like the conversation of the show. So certainly those positive recommendations and stuff help. So I would appreciate that very much. But thanks for tuning in. Here in the Northeast Pennsylvania, it is a beautiful day today. Just exceptional. Last weekend was beautiful. It poured yesterday, but man, finally, when spring hits, it feels good. We're going to meet Jeff here in a moment. And I know he's an upstate guy, and we cherish these warm, sunny days because it's not like that very often up here in the Northeast. So excited about that. So today's date, it is June 11th. And for us New York schools, we have a couple more weeks left, right? And as a school leader, you know, we're tired just like everyone else is tired, but we are going to work our tails off right until the end. And then what are we going to do to recharge? What are you going to do to reset yourself for the summer, to be prepared and add some things to your game, right? Certainly you got to do hiring, and we're going to talk to Jeff about that and getting your school set. But what about you personally? What are some things you're going to add to your game and, for yourself in the summertime? And I like to reset myself in a lot of different ways. And I was talking with my kids last night, and I said, what do you like most about the summer? And, they said that school's over is what their answer was. But they asked me, right? And a couple of things, certainly getting a little more sleep in the morning and being outside. I mentioned the warm weather are some things I really like. But these are three things that are musts for school leaders, things that I think are really important that we do to reset. So number one, are you going to a conference? I think it's very important, right? You're missing school, but you're not missing school. To go to a conference during the school year can be challenging. It can be tough, but go to a conference, number one. And then what are you going to learn at that conference? Are there breakout sessions? You're going to meet people, connect with people. And there's so much value to that. The National Principals Conference is in Boston this summer. I'm so fortunate that I get a chance to present there. I'm psyched about that. But I'm really psyched about going to all these other sessions, right? Meeting great people and, us education leaders, we're going to share. We're going to give away our tips and tricks and secrets. And, man, it's going to be great. So, number one, go to a conference. Number two, what books are you reading, right? All leaders need to be readers. So with that extra time in the summer, what are you going to read? I just started my latest book here. I'm looking forward to meeting Jerry Brooks on the program here, but this is a book I just started. It's a lot of fun. Jerry's famous for making these great videos and bringing culture in his school, so I'm looking forward to that. But what book are you going to read? Whatever the book is, you got to get something out of it, take notes, and what are things that you could take from that book? And again, bring to the table for school next year. And lastly, spend that time with loved ones. I'm here in between school. I got to go back to school tonight. I know Jeff has a meeting tonight, and we're not going to see the kids tonight. He has two young boys of his own. I have three kids, and many of you guys have met them on the program here. But those nights away from school, I don't get to see my kids. And that's a challenge, right, for us school leaders when you don't see your children because you're doing things at school, right? And that's part of our obligation, and all of Team Murata gets that. But in the summertime, I make it a point to make sure I'm home and to be home and those things and spend that time. have that extra ice cream. Let them stay up a little bit later because of all of those things that I don't do during the school year. So those are some things that I like to bring to the table for summertime. And as school leaders, I think it's important. Go to a conference, read a book, and spend that time with loved ones. And I think there's benefit to all of those things. That being said, we are going to get rolling here. Let's meet Jeff Evener here. Jeff, we're going to bring you in. There he is, everyone, from Auburn, New York.
Hey, everybody.
My phone's ringing, Jeff.
I tell you, my boss may knock on the door here pretty soon, so.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Like I said, I'm really excited to be here. I've become a fan of Andrew here through the last few weeks and months, and I'm glad we were able to connect on Twitter. And that's what Professional Learning Network is all about, is you get to connect with other school leaders and learn how to grow and be a better leader by following other leaders and listening to other leaders and talking to other leaders.
Yeah, and we're thrilled to have you on, Jeff, learning about you and the work you're doing at the Auburn School District. So give us a quick introduction, Jeff, of, Auburn, where it is in the country, and, what you're currently doing there.
Auburn is sandwiched kind of in between Syracuse and Rochester. We're about 45 minutes away from Rochester and about 30 minutes away from Syracuse, kind of right in the middle between those 2 points. Right in the middle of upstate New York. We're in the middle of the Finger Lakes region. We got Owasco Lake here in Auburn. We got Cayuga Lake just up the road here. So we're kind of in the heart of the Finger Lakes wine country. Auburn's a small city, about 30,000 at the northern tip of Owasco Lake. We have 7 buildings in our district. We have 5 elementary schools, a junior high, and a high school. Great community, great people. There's plenty of places to eat and go out and do here in Auburn, and I cherish every moment here in Auburn. I don't actually live here, but I spend all my money here, and I spend most of my time here, and the people are fantastic. I'm actually on my second stint here in Auburn. Currently serving as the Assistant Superintendent for Personnel and Operations for the school district. I never saw myself as an HR person, but hey, opportunities happen through life, and you end up sometimes answering the door, and it works out. So just excited to be here in Auburn and excited to be with you today.
And Jeff, you hear a lot of different responsibilities for assistant superintendents, and you hear personnel. Do you do all the hiring in the district?
I do. I don't micromanage the process. I want to start there because it's easier to explain from that perspective. Number one, I put a lot on our building level leaders to screen and to select the candidates to come in for a first round interview. Mm-hmm. And then what I ask my principals is send me the 1 or 2 candidates that you want, that you can live with moving forward, and who you're excited to send to me. And I'll do a final interview with every position in the district that we're hiring for. I also do all the substitute hiring. I don't farm that out, but I want our principals, assistant principals, and directors to have a heavy say, and our teachers and our students, they have a say in who's going to be working in our district because, again, the principals, assistant principals, they're spending a lot of time with these people in the buildings. I can walk out. Our building level leaders can't, as you've lived that every day. You're with these people 24/7. So I do all the final round interviews and make the recommendations to the Board of Education from that point.
And you mentioned students. Is that something that you encourage, having students on interview committees?
I do, and this is something that I didn't. This is my 4th year in this position, Andrew, and it's not something I mandated until this past week. We talked about it at our last leadership team meeting, and I told my leaders, I don't put out a lot of dictates. I don't micromanage anybody. But one thing I want to ensure is that we have student voice on our hiring teams because, again, education is something that can be seen as something that's done to kids, but it's their experience too. It's where we work, but it's the kids' experiences. I want them to be part of this for a multitude of reasons. Number one, to have a voice, but it's great experience for kids to see how interviews actually work and what questions we ask, and for them to meet the candidates ahead of time and be proud of, hey, I met this person before, this teacher, this new Spanish teacher. I met them in interviews, and it's an instant connection with that kid, maybe once the school year starts. So I just think it's great. Kids bring a different perspective, and they bring the right perspective because, again, it's their experience. We just happen to be part of it.
I think that's great. And that is something we want to add to our game too. I'm starting to see it more and more and hear it more and more, no pun intended. A great book from some people I met on the show here is Let Them Speak by Rebecca Coda and Rick Jetter, who's upstate New York as well. That's a great book about student voice also, and it's something that we're gonna add. Jeff, let's go backwards a little bit. You heard the opening segment, and again, upstate New York, the beautiful weather, great time of year. How about yourself for the summer? What are some things, conferences, books, and or other things that you look forward to in the summertime?
Things I look forward to. This is a busy time for me. People ask me what do central office administrators do in the summer. Summertime is one of my busiest times of the year because we're doing all of our hiring for the next school year to start. But it's the fun work. That's the good work. I get to meet a lot of outstanding individuals, and I like that part of the job. But as personally, I'm taking the family like we do every year to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, in the Outer Banks. I'm going to spend a week there with my two little boys and my wife and my in-laws, and we run a house for a week. And it's just a time for me to get away, disconnect, unwind, and read and spend time on the beach and watch my boys have a good time. And other than that, it's spending time with family. I live in Groton, born and raised there. My in-laws live there. My father-in-law is my babysitter. He comes to my house every day. He has for the last three years because he was able to retire a little early.
Nice.
Best friends with my father. He was the best man at my wedding, and we spend a lot of time with family. My wife and I were just talking. We don't have a lot of friends per se because we're spread out all over upstate New York. We spend most of our time with my in-laws and my parents, which is great because that's great for my kids. Those are the memories I had growing up. Those are the memories that I want my kids to have being with their family. But yeah, just recharging those batteries. We have our leadership team retreat this summer. We usually plan out three days in the summer where we do district specific stuff. We do some knowledge and learning. I'm taking a more active role in doing some presentations and sharing my knowledge about leadership and best practices when it comes to leadership. And there's a superintendent's conference in September for New York State school superintendents. The NISCUS is a great organization. Our summer conference is in September. I look forward to that, going to the sessions like you were talking about. But recharging those batteries, that's what it's all about because it's a daunting job that we do, whether you're a leader or in the classroom. And if for anybody that's worked in education for any set amount of time, you need that time to recharge the batteries because you put so much effort into other people. And that's what we get paid to do, but you need that recharging time.
Absolutely. That was a great answer, Jeff. And you mentioned about the leadership retreat and the word leadership multiple times. And you also mentioned about kind of letting the principals handle that process. So not micromanaging. What are some other components to your leadership style that you would say that people work with Jeff Evner that they say, oh yeah, absolutely. What are some of those styles or techniques that you use in your leadership?
I never go into a planning meeting with an outcome in mind because I think I've surrounded myself with very smart people, much smarter than me. So when I'm working with teachers or other leaders, I want them to decide or come to a consensus on how we're going to proceed forward. I want people to know that, I want people to say that I listen, I respect all voices, every voice. But at the end of the day, if I have to, I will make the decision if the group wants me to. But I think I'm a collaborator first and foremost. And my mentor always told me we don't work in an emergency medicine. We have unlimited timeouts. And if an idea doesn't work in education, we can always go back and redo it. We can call those timeouts and go back to the drawing board because again, there are very few emergencies in curriculum and instruction. Very few emergencies, frankly, in the hiring process. Very few emergencies when it comes to overseeing the management and operations of a school district. We can always stop what we're doing, analyze, and go back and redo. But I want the people doing the work to have a vested interest in the outcome of what we're doing. So I start my leadership style with listening and understanding where they're coming from because they're the ones doing the work. I can throw dictates out of my office all day long. They're going to flop. No one's going to have buy-in. And leadership to me, it's complex because there's a lot of moving parts. It's not complicated. It's about people. And yes, people are challenging and we have levels of tolerance with certain people. But again, if you hire well, good decisions are going to happen if you allow space for them to happen.
That's a great answer. There's a lot there. And one of the things I've grown frustrated, right? I believe what you said too about letting them decide the work and the kind of the space to do it. But a quote that really hit me home. Henry Ford said it once. If I asked them what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So how do you balance listening to that voice and listening and letting them go with their ideas versus pushing them out of their comfort zone, or not pushing, but guiding them out of the comfort zone for something new and different, right? Because again, that quote by Henry Ford, we'd still be on horseback if he didn't make that change. So tell me about that balance.
I think the balance comes, Andrew, and when you said faster horses, we don't always need faster horses. We need better horses, right? I had no idea the impact social media could have as far as telling your story in education until I actually did it myself, and sharing those experiences with our educators and trying to get our building level leaders active on Twitter and Facebook and sharing our story. Because if we don't tell our story, somebody else will. But guiding people towards a decision, I go back to when I was a teacher. There's certain classroom rules I wanted and I needed for success for all kids. I gave the kids opportunities to create some of those, but I also had parameters that they got to fit a certain criteria too. So I think our job as district level leaders, create the criteria, but within that, have people can own the plan. They can own the initiative, but we can't make everybody happy. Number one, too. I think that's also something that has to be clear when you're sitting with a group of educators or any leadership with your team. Is we can't go far so out of bounds that we lose sight of our target, which is what's best for kids. We have students to take care of every day. We get paid to love other people's kids, and if it falls outside of bounds of that, we can't do it. So it is a balance, but I'm overly, because of my experiences as a building principal in two different school districts between my two stints in Auburn, I've been overly micromanaged and under micromanaged, and I'm trying to find that balance from my own experiences, because I've lived a minute in a principal's shoes, a building leader's shoes, and I didn't like being micromanaged, and I found it somewhat. Am I alone here? Hello, in my other district, but I love. But my superintendent took a hands-off approach. It's your building. I'm paying you to be the principal. Be the principal.
Yeah.
Which, has benefits too. But so I'm trying to find that middle road of, yes, I have opinions too. It's not just a wide open free for all for people. But it's infusing those. As you know, it's all about timing, right? It's when to have the comment, when to chime in. Sometimes you have to stop the conversation because it's going too far off the radar, and bring it back to our mission, vision, goals, and values. And again, you hire great people, you don't have to worry about that too much. But it's finding that balance between overly directing and not being present at all. I think there's that fine line in between that I try to find every day.
Yeah. Those are great points, Jeff. And if you are watching live, there are a number of people tuned in right now. Please leave us a question or comment. Introduce yourself to Jeff. If you work with Jeff and you're watching from Auburn, certainly leave us a question or comment. We'd love to hear from you. Jeff, you mentioned about Twitter, and that's something that you started using as an educator, and you and I met through PLN on there. But what's another initiative or another focus that you're looking to have in your district, from your role?
One of the things, actually, in education, we commit a lot of theft. We beg, borrow, and steal from other school districts because school districts are doing great things. There's a lot of school districts out there that are on cutting edge of a lot of different things. But one of the things that I'm interested in, Andrew, and I stole it from the Ithaca City School District, and Dr. Louvel Brown, a wonderful educator, great Twitter follow. He gives a Twitter feed over to a student periodically, and it's pretty interesting to see a student go through their day. But one of the things we're looking to do is diversify our workforce here in Auburn. We have a very diverse population here. And one of the things that I'm finding when I go to teacher recruitment days in Cortland, in Buffalo, and Rochester, I'm not seeing a diverse candidate pool when it comes to minority candidates. getting into the teaching profession, or at least they're not showing up to these events and they're not applying for our jobs here in Auburn. So I'm one of the things that I'm working on, and we're in the infancy stages, working with one of my counterparts, is kind of a grow your own. We have kids right now in Auburn High School, minority students who have leadership and teaching written all over them. We have an early childhood learning pathway at our high school. Is there a way we can tap these kids to, you be wonderful educators? Here's the pathway that you can come out, you can be a teacher, you can become a school leader, and start them thinking about it early and often. I came to education as not a second career, but I went to college to be an accountant. And then come to find out I was horrible at math. It didn't really come together for me. So, I fell in love with kids and coaching, and my JV baseball coach from high school led me down this path. And that's my own experiences bring me to this point that it takes an adult to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, have you ever thought about becoming a teacher when you grow up and you leave school? Have you thought about ever becoming a principal or an assistant principal or a superintendent? Because you have great people skills, and getting those kids early and often, I think, is important. And if the candidates aren't out there, they're not applying to Auburn, we're going to create our own. And that's kind of what I want. I want to copy Ithaca's model here in Auburn because it's so beneficial to hire the smart people who've graduated from your high school. Keep people at home, I say. I love hiring Auburn graduates. They've gone out, they got an education, now they're coming back, and we pride ourselves in hiring Auburn people because they know our schools, and we want to keep our smart people home.
That's great. And Jeff, do you guys have an education class within one of the departments at school? Is there an education program?
Yeah, we have an early childhood education program, and it's through our business department and our family consumer science department. And we have a couple classes now. We have a half-day childcare program for 2 and 3 year olds, I believe, at Auburn High School. The kids come in the morning and they're supervised by our students who take these classes, and they play games with them. And it's a full-fledged daycare center, and it's great seeing 18-year-old kids in the hallways with 2 and 3 year olds. It's heartwarming, and the kids are getting a great experience. And I want to grow that.
Yeah.
See if we can target some of our minority students to say, hey, you're awesome with kids, you're awesome with people. This program could be just for you. And that may lean them towards getting a degree in education and becoming teachers, because it is a great profession, and it's allowed me to do a lot of things in my life. And I love working with kids and teachers and principals, and it's awesome. It's endless possibilities. Teaching is the only profession, I believe, where you can start over every September. All the mistakes you made, they're gone. That class is out of here. You can start over undefeated, and that's what I love about teaching and the education profession. We get the kind of that, you talked about, summertime and recharging. In September, we're 1-0, baby. We're starting the year undefeated, and why can't we do that with kids too, every day, every year?
Absolutely. Jeff, you mentioned about hiring people, whether they're from Auburn or not, and in part of your role, one of your main roles is hiring. What are some definite must-sees? Like, I am definitely looking for this in this candidate. And then after that question, what are some things that'll hurt a candidate in that interview? So let's start with the positive. What are some things that you definitely look for when you're hiring?
I'm often I say this quote a lot, is we get paid to love other people's kids. And what I try to do in the interview process is to draw out their personality. Greg Lloyd, he was a linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers a long time. He had a T-shirt that he used to wear, and I remember this when I was a young kid. I was hired for my position, not my disposition. And I've kind of reversed that and say, we're hiring for disposition. We want to make sure someone has the right personality that exudes confidence, yet they're patient, they're loving, they're caring, and they want to do what's right by kids, no matter what the role is, whether it's teacher aide, teaching assistant, teacher, principal, director, assistant principal, doesn't matter. We do this. It's an unselfish profession, and loving other people's kids, it's where it's at. So I'm trying to draw out people's personality, because when you come to us as an adult, you're kind of already wired. Our job is to continue to give you the skills to be a great educator, regardless of your role. But I can't rewire you to be a good teammate, to be compassionate, to have empathy, you got to have those things coming to the table. We'll continue to give you the professional development skills to fill your toolbox as you move forward in your career. That's our responsibility. But it's that personality traits that we can't, they're hard to measure. But that's what we try to elicit. Number one is a passion for children, because that's what we're all about.
Yeah. So how do you find that in a 20 or 30-minute interview? What's a question that you'll ask that will show someone's empathy? What are some things that might show that?
I ask candidates a lot. Let's just stick with teaching, because I ask a lot of similar questions. But tell me about a time where you had to handle a difficult parent. Walk me through that process. And if they're a new, because not everyone comes to the table with experience, and I'm not, I was denied jobs because of lack of experience, and I understand how that works. But trying to rephrase the question, how would you handle? So it's those experiential questions that I ask. I can say, tell me about your background. I'm looking at their resume. I can read. Yeah, I know where they've been. I know what they've done. I know what classes they take. I know what districts they've worked for. But tell me what's not on your resume. Talk to me about those experiences you've had. And those are the questions I tend to lean to, are those experiential questions and how they act under fire when it comes to a disgruntled parent, because it's going to happen. Whether you're a teacher or a principal, assistant principal, disgruntled, they don't call you and say, hey, you guys are doing great. I love what you're doing. Does that happen every so often? Yes, and it's wonderful. But most often people call because there's an issue or a perceived issue, and we have to handle those things regardless of our role. And you got to handle them with tact, professionalism, and be a human too. So I try to draw out the experiences mainly when I interview candidates.
Yeah. One of the things that we like to ask that people really pause, we say, besides your job and your family, tell me something that you're most proud of. And
I love that.
It pauses people. So add that. Yeah. Besides your job and your family, what is something you're most proud of? Because so much of what we do, right? You mentioned about loving other people's kids, right? Like so much of the energy we give are to both of those facets.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we maybe lose those other passions in our lives.
Yeah.
But that question gets them sometimes.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So I'm gonna steal that.
Take it, baby. Take it and use it as your own.
And thank you. And another question I just started using, it's kind of a funky question, but and I ask, I do it whether you're a leadership position I'm hiring for or a teaching position. If your classroom had a hashtag, what would it be? And if your leadership style had a hashtag, what would it be? And I'm getting a lot of creative answers, but I think it also tells you what people value. I'm getting a lot of different and cool responses from candidates. And I'm going through tenure interviews right now, and that's one of the questions I'm asking some of our probationary teachers is, if your classroom had its own hashtag, what would it be? And I'm getting awesome, hashtags about love, compassion, controlled chaos, those type of things. And it's heartwarming to see how teachers think about how their classroom is perceived by their kids. So that's another question I started using, and I really like it because, number one, it's silly. But it kind of maybe pulls out some of that personality that we're trying to hope for and get to.
Sure. And Jeff, on the negative side, like what is something like, that's not good, something that might hurt someone in an interview that really might be a sticking point for you?
Skinny ties. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Sticking point for me, Andrew, is when people come in and they don't look at you in the eye. They don't ask good follow-up questions, because I want to make sure they're interviewing us just as hard as we're interviewing them. So, at the end of the interview, and I say, okay, I'm going to turn it over to you. Now is your chance to interview us, because it has to be a good marriage here. What questions do you have for us? A 100% chance of not getting the job is the proverbial, nope, I'm all set. I want to know that you have questions, that you're interested in what we do, you're interested in who we are. To me, that's a non-negotiable. If you're not curious, if you're not willing to ask who we are, what we're about, I don't think I want you working for the school, because this job's way too important to have someone who's not curious and wants to know who we are, because we have a lot to share.
Yeah. Jeff, something I've also had a hard time with, people that are late to interviews.
Yes.
Do you still grant the interview if they're late? Like, I've really just getting so blown away, frustrated with this.
Yeah, it's it's becoming, I'm seeing it more and more. Will I grant the interview? Sorry about that.
Just hung up on a pair. What are you doing?
It depends on the reason, I guess. A car accident is one thing, but I do grant the interview because there's always extenuating circumstances. I may get to a point where it's becoming all too frequent. I say, no, I'm not going to waste my committee's time. But it could be a diamond in the rough. Sometimes, things happen, construction happens, car, flat tire. If they reach out to me, and I give everyone my cell phone number who we're bringing in for an interview, if you're going to be late, call me. At least give me the courtesy to let my committee know, okay, we're 15 minutes behind schedule. I'm going to grant the interview. This happened, that happened. But if it's for no good reason at all, then I'm running late, sorry, you just lost a chance. But yeah, I'm seeing it more and more.
So I had a situation this year too, and today I don't have a tie on. We're getting towards the end, and I go with my polos now. But a gentleman came in. He had a nice shirt and tie on. He had a sport coat on. He took it off, and I said, "Why are you taking the sport coat off?" He says, "Well, you guys look a little more comfortable. I'd like to be more comfortable." And I was kind of like, and the people on the committee told me, leave the kid alone. Yeah, but what do you think about that? Someone being almost so comfortable in an interview that they're going to take their sport coat off.
I'm part of me. I'm old school, Andrew. Sports coat on at all costs. When you stand up, button it back up. When you sit down, unbutton it one. Don't let me see the sweat rings. Those type of things.
Yep.
Keep that sports coat on, baby. Because there's certain parts of me that are old school. I want to see press. I want to see sharp lines. I think how you dress is important. It says a lot about who you are. And interviews is never time to take sports coat off. Unless there's instructions ahead of time, leave that sports coat on.
Well, and I'm going to guess we spoke a little bit about your dad off air, and you mentioned how close you are with him. And I learned that from my dad, and it does say a lot, and I feel the same way. Jeff, we're coming up on Father's Day weekend here, and you mentioned the relationship with your dad. Talk to me a little bit about that on what lessons you learned in leadership from your dad, because it is refreshing to hear a grown professional like yourself, say that his dad is his best friend, and that was beautiful. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
My dad, he's a laugh a minute. One of the biggest leadership lessons, and my dad, and I may get a little emotional here talking about him, but from 18 years old on, right out of high school, he married my mom. I have a sister who's 11 months older. She's also in the field of education. She's a teacher in Waverly, New York. She's an awesome. We fought like cats and dogs, but we're best friends now as we're adults, and we have our own children now, and they get together. But my dad is one who never took anything too seriously. We're put through this planet one time. You get one ride at this, and why not laugh often? And he's been a factory worker for over 40 years. He worked at Smith typewriter. I remember Smith Corona split town. They left Groton in Cortland, New York, and they went to Mexico. My dad was one of the people without a job. He went to Ithaca Hospital, worked as a custodian there for 14 months while myself, my mom, and my sister were all in college. He was supporting a family of four of us, including himself. And, so my dad taught me a lot of life lessons through that experience. I was a formidable age at that time and watching my dad struggle to find work, and caught on with another factory. He's been there for 25 plus years. He'll be retiring hopefully in a couple of years. But laugh often, work hard, and put family first. Those are the three things my dad has taught me in my, just in my experiences with him. His name is Jeff too. So he's just an awesome dude, and I love watching him with my own boys. He's rough houses. He plays. He's on the floor with them. He's chasing them, carrying them around, being rough with them. And, I just hope to be that dad. He's been such a good dad to me that I just want to return the favor to my boys and, show them how the world works a little bit. But, my dad's not a leader by trade, but he's a leader by heart. He puts himself out there. He helps everybody. He's always working. He coached for a long time. He coached my little league team. He coached our varsity football team in Groton for years, long after I was out working. So he's always been there for kids and loves kids. And, he's just taught me a lot. And those are the main things is laugh, work hard, put family first. And it's always about other people. You're always there to help. And when someone asks for help, say yes.
That's beautiful, Jeff. And I wish you a happy Father's Day coming up. That's great to hear with that. And I know one of the traditions and loves that you share together is football also. You go to the Cornell football games together. You played college football. Where did that tradition start from? And what part of leadership do you take from football?
The whole going to the Cornell games with my father, again, we live 15, 20 minutes away from the Crescent there at Cornell University. So, Cornell's been a big part of our Cornell football has been a big part of my dad growing up. Ed Marinero was playing football at Cornell when my dad was in high school. So he's followed Cornell football for years and years and years. And then as I got older and graduated college and wasn't playing anymore, I moved back home and was a teacher here in Auburn. And we just wanted something to do in the fall. We weren't sure what we wanted to do, but we tailgated a couple of times and we said, man, this is a lot of fun. Just getting out of the house, being outside in the fall. Fall is my favorite time. Don't get me wrong, I love the summer, but football season is just something with passion. My dad instilled in me football is important. It's a great game. I grew up with my dad's scrapbook from high school. My dad played at Groton High School. They lost 2 games in the 3 years he played varsity here in Groton. And they still get together every 5 years to celebrate the 71 football team, the undefeated season. So I know all his buddies, grew up with those guys. It just became a thing, and we've been doing it for 10 years now. We get 4 season tickets to all home games. I get the Cornell parking pass, so we pack up my truck and the grill and the coolers and spend a day. And now my father-in-law joins us every Saturday. Cornell plays home, and we always we have an extra ticket. So every weekend it's a different buddy that we have come with us. But it's just, football, like any sport, but I draw my experiences here. The game's bigger than us. It's about the team. You don't accomplish anything alone on a football field. It's impossible. Any successful play takes all 11 guys doing the right things, making sure their assignment's done appropriately, correctly, safely, at full throttle. And I didn't become an assistant superintendent by myself. So I relate that to football. I didn't throw for 200 yards in a game because I'm a great quarterback. I had a great line, great back stepping up to pick up the blitzes, and great receivers getting open. So it's we're all in this together type of approach. And that's what football taught me is, and I didn't do as much winning as my dad. I lost a lot, lost often, but I'm still buddies with my high school teammates, still buddies with my college teammates, because we were in it together, and those relationships matter. And what we were doing on the football field, although it was small Division III, at the time it mattered, and we forged together to accomplish our goals. And that's what education is. We're coming together to accomplish our collective goals.
Awesome, Jeff. That's a great story about that. Fall football up there in upstate New York. Jeff, we're running out of time. Let's get to rapid fire. I know you got a school board meeting, and I got a meeting back at school too. So let's roll. What's the last book you read?
Well, the last book I read is actually yours, Andrew. It's the one I did page to page. And I just started Leading with Emotional Courage by Peter Bregman. Great book. Again, like your book, you can read it out of order. I have a little ADD a little bit, so I kind of flip around. Got a lot of books going at once. But this really talks about taking care of yourself. And as a leader, if you don't take care of yourself, health, mind, body, spirit, family, your leadership takes hits. The people around you on your team take hits because you're not present. So it's working to be present, and making sure you're there for your people. But you got to be right inside in order to be a good leader.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you in my book like that, and I know we might connect on that with some of your people. How about movies, Jeff? What's the last movie you saw?
Animal House. I watched it. I love that movie. I've watched it a million times. It's the last full-length movie I've watched. The last show I watched, my wife and I, we have different tastes. We watched Letterkenny on Hulu. If you get a chance, it's pretty funny, pretty creative show. It's based out of Canada. Makes fun of Canadians. Big Canadian Football League guy, so I love Canada. I've been there a couple times, but great show. We watched season 1 to season 7 in about a couple days, but Animal House is the last movie. Letterkenny was the last show.
Letterkenny?
Yeah. Yep.
Letterkenny. Okay. You mentioned Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Went to college down in North Carolina. Love it. Would you say that your favorite place to travel? Where's your favorite place to travel?
Favorite place to travel is the Outer Banks. We know a lot of the locals there. My wife's uncle lived there for a long time, so we're still friends with his old friends, and he's since passed. So we go every year, and I just love it there. It's my kind of little place of the earth where I can unwind and take the tie off and wear shorts and flip flops and just be myself with my family. And I love it there. It's only for a week, but it's a week that if I didn't have it, I'd miss it.
Awesome. Check out the Lost Colony. It's down there. It's an outdoor show. It's a little history there. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but as a former history teacher, it's on my bucket list. I went to the Wright Brothers Museum, and it's hard to get off the beach. Once you're on the beach, it's hard to do touristy things,
Jeff, what's a great challenge in your work?
The great challenge in my work, we have 600 active employees here in Auburn between our teachers, our aides, our custodians, maintenance, buildings and grounds. The difficult thing is making sure that I'm communicating with everybody. I know sometimes it's impossible, but being visible with 7 buildings, it's very difficult. Every Wednesday morning after a board meeting, I block out 2 hours to be in buildings. No agenda, visit with teachers, visit with the kids, visit with building administration, and just being visible. It's hard with this many people in this many buildings, but it's important. People need to know that I'm approachable. I'm not in the ivory tower by any stretch of the imagination. My door is always open. I want people to talk to me, and I want to talk to people to find out what's really going on in our schools. So the biggest challenge is communication and being visible with how widespread we are.
How about a pet peeve in your job? What's something that gets under your skin?
How much time we got? No. What really gets under my skin is when I get a hard no from someone. When it comes to trying a new initiative or a new idea, that we've always done it this way. They want different outcomes, but they're not willing to try something new to get there. And that drives me crazy, drives me nuts.
Best purchase under $100 that has had a great impact on your life?
$28. It's not a Fitbit. It's a Very Fit Pro. Had a little heart episode over St. Patrick's Day weekend this year. I had to completely change my health habits. I would consider myself a runner now. I work out every night when the kiddos go to bed. But tracking my health has been important to me. I drink water now on a regular basis. I didn't really drink a lot of water, but my cholesterol is going down. My heart feels good. I run every morning before I come to work. So this has been a lifesaver. $28.95 on Amazon, and also Rocketbook. It is amazing. I don't have a yellow pad anymore.
Yeah.
Those two things combined are $100, but those two things have been game changers for me.
What's the name of the thing on your?
It's a Very Fit Pro.
Very Fit Pro.
$28.95, and if it breaks, I can buy 2 more, and I'm still under what it costs to buy a Fitbit.
Okay, I might check it out. Jeff, you've shared a lot about yourself today. You've been great to talk with. What is something about Jeff Evner that people don't know about?
I struggle with this question, but I served for 3 terms as mayor of my hometown in Groton. I was the mayor of the village of Groton for 6 years. Also, I was a village trustee for 5 years. So I served my local community for 11 years. My grandfather was the mayor of the village of Groton, so I kind of followed in his footsteps, and I forged a lot of leadership skills in that role too. Working with a fire chief and a police chief and the administration staff, Department of Public Works and electric department, and working with the town of Groton too, and doing a lot of shared services and those type of things, which will serve me well down the road, I'm hoping.
Yeah. Who is the most famous person in the Syracuse area, either related to the school or not?
Well, my father would say Larry Zonka. Played full. My dad was a fullback, so he loved Ed Marinero and Larry Zonka. So I'm going to say Larry Zonka.
More than Jim Boeheim?
Yeah, I mean, love Syracuse basketball. I grew up a Chris Mullin fan. I was left-handed, played point guard, grew up a Johnny's fan. So I got to admit, not always been a huge Syracuse fan, but Jimmy Boeheim stands. He's right up there on the Mount Rushmore of Syracuse.
Yeah, Mullin went to my high school.
Oh, he did. I didn't know that.
Yeah, in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of connections there. We can talk about that. Jeff, what's a short-term goal for you? 3 to 5 months.
3 to 5 months is I want to make sure that with our vacancies, I'm bringing in the best talented people to serve the children of Auburn. So by the end of this summer, we're going to be better off than we were at the end of this year. Not that we want to see our retirees go because I want them to stay forever, but I want to make sure we're hiring better. So my short-term goal is to find those people and get them in here because our kids deserve it. They deserve the best.
And a long-term goal, 3 to 5 years.
I've always wanted to be a superintendent. But I love this job. I love my executive team. I love the teachers. This is my second stint in Auburn. I was taught with the director of curriculum for a while, and I came back in this role. But I was talking to a friend of mine just before we came on, and I was a principal for 5.5 years. I still get that itch, to be. I don't think I accomplished all I wanted to accomplish because of opportunity in my principalships. So you never know where life's going to twist and turn, but I could be a superintendent, or I could, I could be a principal again because I loved being a principal. It was a great job.
Cool. Jeff, I mentioned social media before. What's your Twitter handle? How can people get in touch with you?
Twitter handle's @EvenerJeff. You can send me emails too. It's jeffevener@yahoo.com or jeffevener@gmail.com. I have both. I do 85% of my reading via Twitter. I follow tons of people. I still read the real paper book still, but a lot of articles, a lot of things to share. For those people who are just on Twitter, just start following people. That's how you're going to build up your repertoire and your articles and your professional learning. Because again, Twitter can be a very powerful tool when it comes to expanding your own knowledge.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. You did a great job interviewing Jeff, and I had a book recommendation. And a lot of times I put a quote in there, and I wrote one down. But do you have a quote that you like to share, something that motivates you or something that means a lot to you?
Yeah, the thing that motivates me is my wife and I have a saying. We've kind of gotten away from it as we've got kids, but we always used to sign in our cards, "Love you to the moon and back." And I should do that more and say that more to my wife. But that rings true for me for what I do for a living. I don't interact every day with kids, but it's my job to love them and to hire the best people to love them. So loving our children to the moon and back is a priority of mine. And my wife started saying that years ago, and it's something that we moved away from. And I'm glad you said this because I got to make sure I spread that message a little more and communicate that a little more. Love these kids to the moon and back.
That's awesome, man. That could be the name of your book. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
But I wrote down, you said a lot of great stuff today, and I wrote it down. I didn't use my Rocket book today. I should have. I have it here, and I'm glad to see you using it. Yeah. Thanks
for the suggestion. I'm glad it came across your Twitter feed and your podcast, and I just love it. I don't have to yell anymore.
You don't lose anything. You said here, and if an idea doesn't work, we're not in a medical emergency situation. We can go back and try something different. We can try it again next year or next time. So I wrote that down as well. I thought that was great.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. I was nervous as all get out coming on. I've never done something like this before, and I want to thank you for challenging me to expand my horizons when it comes to learning and different avenues of learning. And you're an inspiration. I love the work you're doing on social media. Port Jervis is lucky to have you. Having a principal out there that is making a name not only for himself but for the school. I don't think there's a time when Port Jervis doesn't come out of your mouth. You're really proud of your school, and I can really tell. And we're lucky to have you.
Cool, Jeff. Cool. Well, we might have to meet at that tailgate up at the Cornell football.
Oh, absolutely. If you're officiating up there, let me know.
Hey, look, he's trying to get an inside call for Cornell here, right on public air. Jeff, I'm going to cue this music up. It was great. Jeff, one more time, your Twitter handle. Go ahead.
@EvenerJeff, EvenerJeff, @EvenerJeff.
And I'm @Andrew Murata. This is Education, Leadership, and Beyond. It was show number 93. Jeff did a great job today up at Auburn City School District in New York. Give the show a retweet, and if you enjoyed it, leave us a positive message. Jeff, great job.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate it, and thanks for the opportunity.
Cool. Hang on the line a sec, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone.